Hello friends, I'm Shelly Clough and today is day 5 of watercolor Christmas cards. This is the design that we are going to be painting today. So the paper that I'm using today is just some Canson XL paper that I have trimmed and folded. To do that, I just use this trimming board, and then it has a little scoring tool that I will use to score the paper. You can buy pre-cut Christmas cards as well, so I'll link below some options there. I think it comes out a little cheaper to trim it down, but it is more time, so up to you. We are going to dive in. I'm just going to take this card, and this is a horizontal design, so I am going to kind of set this down on my station, and I'm going to put a little bit of tape down. So again, I'm just always trying to be mindful of where my design is going to go. So this one is going to go through the middle of the page, so I'm just going to tape down my corners up here just to keep my card in place while I'm painting. Okay, and now for paints today, I'm just using what I call my starter palette. I've got a swatch card of this linked below that shows all of the colors that I have in here. If you want that, it's just in the description box, and I'm just misting that with my spray bottle to kind of wake up my paints. The other tool that I'm going to be using, I don't know if this is weird, but you know those little medicine cups that come with children's, ibuprofen or something. I'm using one of those to help make my round orange shapes. You could also use something like a washi tape roll. You could use like a paper towel, cardboard ring. So anything that this is, maybe 1.5 inches in diameter is about the size, but any sort of round object you can use. But that's what I had handy and is easy to wipe off. So I'm going to mix up an orange color here that I'm going to use for these oranges. We're going to do that part first. So I'm going to start with some cadmium red. I'm just using my size 4 Da Vinci brush here, and I'm going to start with cadmium red and then go in with some cadmium yellow to get that nice orange tone. And I want my initial color to be pretty vibrant, so I'm going through and adding quite a bit of pigment here to get a nice color. And then I do like to add just a little bit of something. So right now this color is very saturated. I want to mellow it out a little bit, so I think I'm going to go in with some of this yellow ochre. I'm just going to rinse. I had a little bit of green left on that. I'm just going to wipe that off and get some of that yellow ochre, add that in here, and then go in with a little bit more red. And now it's a little bit more of a realistic orange. So I want enough that I can have a little puddle that my little cup will fit into. And so I'm just going to tap my cup in the paint, try to get some paint on the rim there. And then I'm going to place one of these kind of in the middle, like right there. And I'm going to wait for a minute to do the other one. So what I'm going to do is after I make that ring, I'm going to take a clean, wet brush and just activate that whole perimeter. What I want is to just get a nice little fade there. And then once I've got that activated, I'm just going to go through and reinforce that color along the outside. So I want to get that strong color on that outside area while that's all still wet. And I'm going to give things a rinse, and we're going to go ahead and make the second one. Just going to dip my cup in the paint there. And my second one, I'm just going to have a little offset over here. Kind of tap that around. Make sure I got all the sides on. And then again, taking that clean, damp brush and just running it along that paint that I laid down. I just want to kind of fade that out. And then taking a little extra color and reinforcing that outer perimeter. And I want that to sort of do like that fun bleeding motion as it works its way inside. Totally fine. That's what I like. Now I'm going to start building in some of those inner parts of the orange, kind of the little vessels of color that we get. And so I'm sort of making a little side puddle on my palette here so that this orange color is a little bit lighter as I go in. And the first thing I'm going to do is make some little lines sort of dividing up this orange. Okay, so there's kind of my segments, and then I'm just going to do like a loose dotted line within the perimeter here. So there's just a little buffer zone between that outer area and kind of my inner line. And then I'm just going to do these sort of marks. I'm lifting my brush up every now and then, just little dabs. I'm letting some of them touch, but leaving a little bit of white space in between. And that is kind of creating those little, juicy segments of orange that we see. Just kind of dabbing those along. And then I'm going to enhance some of this edging a little bit so I don't have too much kind of white space. Just going through a little bit, kind of re-emphasizing some of those lines, not over the entire thing. I just want to kind of here and there deepen things a little bit. I'm sort of slowly building up some dimension there. So now I'm going to take sort of the side of my puddle that's a little more pigmented, and one more time I'm going to come around that perimeter here. And I'm okay if there's little breaks in the line, because I think it just makes things look a little bit more organic and natural. And then I'm going to take some of that color and again sort of drop it in portions of what we've laid down. So some of those crisscross lines, I'm laying that down. It's really just sort of layering here and there, and then going over some of those marks that I made. And just sort of tilting my brush so it's a little bit angled, and just using the edge of my brush to sort of scoot back and forth, lifting it now and then, just sort of creating enough movement so we've got some dimension here. So now I'm going to do the same thing on the other side. I'm going to start out with sort of that lighter color, do some little crisscrosses in the middle, just making skinny little lines. I can always build them up, but I can't really make them smaller once I lay them down. And then again, just sort of some dashes for that inner perimeter. And then my little scooting motions. This is one of those types of paintings where you want to trust the process. I feel like around this stage, it looks kind of funny and you don't believe it's going to come together. And you feel like you've ruined it, but you just keep swimming. Just like Dory, just keep swimming. And then we will get past the tough part, and then your orange will start to look better as you keep going. So we've got these little marks that we're making. And then again, I'm going to grab kind of some of that deeper, more pigmented color. I'm going to add a little more paint to my palette here. Just going in with those colors we used before and reinforcing that outer edge here. And I love this is meant to look like dried oranges on a little garland, which I think is such a pretty Christmas decoration. And then again, just sort of reinforcing some of these lines that I've made on the inside, increasing that dimension, little marks here and there. So I'm just going over a portion of the marks that I laid down the first time. So that way I have, essentially this is what creates my shadows and highlights, is having some colors that are lighter and some that are darker. Okay, I'm feeling pretty good about those. We may do a little bit of tweaking of them afterwards, but now I'm going to go in with my garland. So for my garland, I'm going to use my favorite Christmas green, which is just that Viridian green mixed with burnt umber. And I'm going to mix a pretty good puddle of that so that I have enough to not have to remix a bunch of times as I'm going. I'm just alternating, grabbing some water from my jar and pigment from the pan here. And then down here, I've got my burnt umber. And I love what happens when I add the burnt umber to this. It takes that really bright turquoise color and it really makes it more earthy. And you really, it's about 50-50 here, the brown and the Viridian green. So kind of keep going until it almost looks too brown, and then that's about right. So in the pan, when it looks a little brown, is when I think it looks the best on the paper. Okay, I'm going to add a little bit of water just to make sure it's not too saturated. And then I'm going to sort of swipe off my brush, especially after mixing colors. I really like to tap off my brush and make sure I don't have a bunch of water loaded into the bristles. So now I'm just going to take some of that color, and first I'm going to lay down like the arc of my garland, and I want it to sort of wave up and down. And so I'm just going to really lightly with my brush sort of trace a little outline line that kind of arcs up and down. So there's sort of my general shape. And then for my garland, we are going to sort of zigzag back and forth. So it's almost like pine needles, but thicker. It actually goes a little quicker. So if I just sort of zigzag my brush back and forth like that, I'm going to do the same thing. I just want them all kind of pointing in the same direction. And then deepening up the middle a little bit. Be tapping a little extra color here and there. And then do that again over here, sort of doing this angled zigzag motion where some parts, I want there to be variation in the depths of these different marks. So some are a little further out, some are a little closer, and that variation helps it look a little more organic. And then I am just tapping in the middle here and there so that it doesn't look like two totally separate sides, that it kind of looks conjoined in the middle there. And again, while that's wet, just going to tap a little extra color here and there for some dimension. And then again over here, same thing, kind of getting some nice angles going, coming off of that stem, and then just right up to the edges. Okay, look how pretty. I'll tap a little extra in the middle there. And then at this point, you can decide if you need a little extra dimension on your oranges. So I feel like I want to deepen them a little and add a different tone. So I am going to actually grab some alizarin crimson, which is just a different red tone. And then I'm going to mix that with some cadmium yellow to try to get a different shade of orange. Oops, I'm going in the wrong colors here. To get a different shade of orange. So grabbing that cad yellow, bringing that over here till I get an orangey tone. And then I'm even going to add just a little bit of brown to sort of deepen that some more alizarin crimson, just sort of tugging back and forth till I get another shade of brown, or sorry, of an orangey color, but it's a little bit more muted. So if you can see this, it's sort of like a muddier orange color. It's a little deeper. So here, this one, it's brighter and more vibrant. This one's a little darker. And so I'm just going to take that and place it here and there. So definitely kind of around the perimeter a bit, and not around the whole thing. I like to have like little breaks in the line. Just helps it look kind of visually interesting. Little breaks here and there. And then I'm going to add a little bit more water to that and go in on some of these inner portions. Like I can always make it darker, but I don't want it to be too dark. Really want to emphasize that center area here, and then just little bits elsewhere. And watercolor, it always lightens as it dries. That's just kind of how it works out. And so as you put down another layer, sometimes it can be kind of scary because it'll look like a really stark contrast, but it always mellows out. It also means if it looks perfect right when you put the paint down, it might sort of fade and not look quite as nice as you wanted it to as it dries. Okay, do you see how the shapes are kind of popping out a little bit more? And then I'm just going to do a few little flicks in here of that darker color. Just here and there. Because we already have so much background color, just some dabs here and there help those shapes to pop out. Okay, I think I am pretty happy with that. All right, so there is our card. We've got our pretty oranges and our garland. Now I am going to let that dry all the way and then go ahead and peel the tape off. And I have one little step I like to add on the back to personalize it that I'll show you. Okay, so here's my dry card. I'm just going to flip it over And I have this stamp that I like to use. It says handmade by Shelley Clough Art, and I feel like it's just such a nice little addition to the back of the card. So I'm just gonna tap on my stamp pad here. And this stamp I got a few years ago. So the listing wasn't up anymore, but I found a different custom stamp listing, and I have that in the description box if you wanted to get one of your own. And I'm just gonna sort of center that. I also have in the description box a template. Look how pretty. A template if you want a design kind of like this that you can just plug your name into, and that way you don't have to figure out how to, make a custom design. So all of that's in the description box, but here is our final card. I hope you enjoyed this tutorial. I hope you hang around for the next several days of Christmas cards. Make sure you subscribe to the channel, and we will see you all in the next video. Thanks so much for watching.